So it is just the first week of the new year, and some of us are still kind of looking back on what went on in 2015 and what might have been impressive in the news. Jennifer Bowman and Dillon Davis here from the Battle Creek Enquirer and covering all those things all year long. Good morning.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome back. Welcome back. So let's not start with the biggest story. Let's start somewhere in the mix there and work toward that, shall we? But there were a few last year, weren't there?
Sure. You want to talk about the Battle Creek Show, Dylan? You're the one
Oh,
who covered
yeah.
that.
We talked about this a couple of times. We did a top 5 stories. The Battle Creek TV show on CBS was the was the big one. I mean, it came and went, but
It
I mean,
sure did. It's on Netflix now, I hear.
Yeah.
The
You know, last
one
time I
rockin'
checked, it
season.
wasn't. It was supposed
It
to.
is.
It
It is
is?
on there,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Is it now? Okay, good.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, they
There
said
was
it
some
coming
chatter
in
about it.
August, and then it didn't come at all, and
I
nobody
see.
ever followed up.
All right, so it's back there now. I meant to look that up yesterday. I got distracted by all the Nurse Jackies that are on there now.
Oh, yeah. I saw that. I did get that email.
You
Did
watching
you?
Making
Yeah.
a Murderer? Have you seen that?
I have not seen that.
Oh, you got to get in on that. It's pretty
Yeah,
good.
you're not the first one to tell me that. What is this about? We could have a whole show about
Yeah.
It is
shows,
so
but
good.
Oh,
I
we
think
can sit
it's
here and talk.
I'm an expert in making a murder.
yeah. Okay, you are. Okay, so it started with Revenge and then Scandal, and now this How to Get
Yeah.
Away with Murder business. Yeah. Anyway,
No spoilers, though.
no, we'll stay out of that. So yeah, the Battle Creek television show. It kind of got us all stirred up, didn't it?
Yeah, it was something that I think a lot of people were excited about. You could
Mhm.
see, I mean, it wasn't filmed here, and some of the content wasn't exactly, geared towards exactly what it looks like here. But I mean, it had the feel of Battle Creek a little bit, and I think people liked that. It had our street names, and it had.
Well,
and even Deb Owens, our mayor, was excited at that
right.
time.
They
So, I
they
mean,
showed up and tried to get a notion for it.
Yeah.
Opening credits had
Yeah.
Battle Creek.
Mhm.
People were excited about it. I mean, my stepmom lives in Tucson, and she was watching the show. She's a fan of Josh Duhamel, but she's
Well,
also,
right.
oh, is this, she's so excited about Battle Creek. So
Yes.
it kind of put us on the map, for the people who know us, it's mostly about cereal, but to have a show with our name, I think was really cool for a city our size.
All right. What else? What's the next big story that comes to mind?
Probably Battle Creek Public Schools is another one. They had just a very dramatic year, a very up and down year, talking about closing elementary schools, and at one point they had as many as 3, that could close, and they ended up, with just the one, Coburn, and and then all of a sudden Linda Hicks has a performance review, and it gets extended, and then
Out of there.
she resigns, and they accept her resignation, and they have a new superintendent. So
Has the dust settled on any of that?
Well, no. I mean, they haven't hired a permanent superintendent. I think Battle Creek Public Schools is still very much in transition right now. And you're looking at BC Vision, all the things that they're talking about when it comes to discussions about schools and structure. And they may have closed one school, but they were dealing with quite a deficit at that time. I'm not sure how their finances look now, but I doubt it's something that, we're solid year after year now. I
Sure.
think finances and looming deficits are kind of what the district's going to have to deal with for some time, unless something dramatic changes.
Kim Parker Duvall, Kim Parker Duvall really has a hole that's there. I mean, there's a lot of questions that need to be answered about, where are your students going? How are you going to educate them in the new year? I mean,
Yeah, interestingly, coming up on Monday, we'll talk about that here on the show. In fact, they're undertaking a big attendance push now, in the Battle Creek Public Schools, trying to underscore how important it is to be there. If you want to learn, you've got to show up, right? What's that slogan? 95% of life is showing up?
yeah,
Something like that?
like
Yeah. So they're going to focus on that. We'll talk about that on Monday. We'll talk about some of the other big stories from 2015, too, when we come right back. WBCK, all right, we're sitting around here talking about How to Get Away with Murder and the making of a murder and Scandal and all that. I don't know where that came from. All right, so the big stories of 2015 is really what we're talking about with Jennifer Bowman and Dillon Davis at the Battle Creek Enquirer. All right, next big story.
I would say it's probably the LGBT, the gay marriage thing
Oh.
in June. I mean, that was a huge deal for the area. I mean, and Jennifer was there that day, and they didn't have a ton of people that went out and got licenses that day. I think it was just 3. But
Immediately, you mean,
I
yeah.
think it was just one, actually.
I think by the end of the day they had 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, because people once it's settled, they don't have to rush out. They can have a normal, ceremony like most people would. And I
Sure.
think that was a it was a very well. I mean, I was dealing with the Battle Creek Pride people all year, and
Mm-hmm.
they were pumped about that. I mean,
I remember talking with the clerk, too, at
Yeah.
that point, and she, of course, had to make sure that they were prepared in case there was a big run on licenses
Yeah.
that particular day.
And you know what? They absolutely were. I mean, I remember going there, and Ann Norlander had her numbers just in case there was a line piling up, and all
Yeah.
staff on deck, and it was quite prepared, and it was a seamless process. It's been pretty. If I remember correctly, the last time I checked in with her a couple weeks ago, I think they've only had 20 same-sex marriage licenses issued since then.
Okay.
Of course, I think there's a lot of people who, if they wanted to get married, they found a way.
Right.
So who knows? But definitely a story that you see in a local setting that was national. I mean, the Pointer website actually took front pages of newspapers from each state, and they
Yes.
had ours. And I remember our headline was "At Last, I Do," and it was a picture of the first couple that got the first same-sex couple to get married in Calhoun County.
Yeah, in Kalamazoo County, there was a lot going on there too. There was a big ceremony in the park downtown, and a number of couples showed up for that, and I think the mayor presided over it, and so there was some fanfare just to the west too about it as well. So I suppose that was a big story. When you think about local stories, you might be imagining the schools or Summit Point or something like that,
Sure.
but there's a national story that had ripple effects all the way across.
You can't ignore
Can't
the
ignore it.
local level.
and you don't realize how many people it's going to impact. I mean, I talked to Larry Dillon in the story. He's with the community editorial board with the Enquirer, and he does a bunch of things in the community on that behalf. And he told me, he's like, I've been to more weddings this year than since that happened than I've been to in the last 5 years.
Oh,
He
wow.
said, he was talking about he was seeing couples of like 40 plus years get together,
Oh,
and
yeah.
then couples who had just been together like a year.
I saw that
so
too.
just seeing the wide range of people that are finally able to come together and be together, and reap the benefits of that. I think that was it was on a local level. That was a big deal. National level, it's huge.
Sure.
All right, and when we come back in a minute, we'll talk about some of the other big stories locally on WBCK. Jennifer Bowman and Dillon Davis here from the Battle Creek Enquirer. Remaining stories of 2015 that were big. I have a feeling I know where we're going here, but take us there.
Well, obviously, I think the last two that we put out there was the I-94 pile up.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
We're almost to the year on that, January 9th last year.
Yeah, so tons of cards. It's amazing that there was only one unfortunate death in that, but I mean hours and prompting a study at the state level and looking at how that highway is constructed and speed and all that. Certainly a story that, because of just how crazy that pileup was, got attention from way beyond Michigan. So
I'm not sure if one of you wrote it, but there was a very nice story written recently about that in the Enquirer, and it was from the angle of one of the responders, one of the firemen who went out there and
probably Trace.
Yeah.
thinks about that. It might have been. Thinks about that every time he drives through there, and those images are still with him. Could you imagine? First of all, being in it and then responding to it,
I know.
and fireworks going off, and
Yeah.
Right.
Luckily, I wasn't sent out there. I remember Trace coming back, and he smelled like smoke. He was freezing.
oh my gosh,
He was way too close to that truck with fireworks when
Yeah.
it happened.
well,
and,
a lot of people were.
yeah. And so I luckily was able to just come have my comfy chair and live tweet from whatever information we were getting. But it was crazy even for me just to see that coming in and listening to the scanner
Sure,
and all that. So,
incredible. Other big story.
well, Irv Brinker and Summit
Big one.
Point.
Yes.
Yeah, I
Yes.
think that's a story that is going to continue on. What you had was a mental health agency CEO who is pretty well respected in the community, getting suddenly placed on leave and ultimately fired. And then a few months later, the AG comes out and says, we're having this investigation. He's charged with Medicaid fraud and embezzlement, pleaded guilty last month, will be sentenced in next week.
What's the thought on the sentencing there?
So criminal sentencing guidelines for he pleaded guilty. It says 0 to 17 months, but the judge has he can do whatever he wants, basically. So right now, it's a matter of what the organization has to say, what the I guess you could call them the victims have to say, and what's happened. So who knows? Who knows? I mean, he has worked on a plea agreement where he will be working with the Attorney General's office to discuss the pension plan. So who knows if that helped him in any way. But
Right.
And $1 million in fines. So
Yeah. So there's some money there.
You thought if he was paying a psychic, you could have seen that coming.
Well,
Yeah.
that joke's probably been told a few times,
That's my
hasn't it?
favorite.
Well,
Yeah.
we're doing 2015 right now,
Oh,
Richard.
that's right. Yeah, that's right. We're looking back. Now, what if we looked forward? Are there big things that we can anticipate this year? I guess if we talk about BC Vision, for example, that's
Sure.
last year and this coming year.
That I think you'll see in the next 3 years. I mean, they're finally seeming to get a hold of the structure and moving past goal setting and metrics. So I think we'll see a lot of the meat of their work this year and next. But certainly something we plan to keep a close eye on and really interested to see how that process goes.
There's a lot to be said about downtown development going on here in Battle Creek. I mean, I know that John Hart, who is the downtown developer, was hired mid-year. He's got a ton of good ideas for what they want to do, and the city trusts him implicitly to just do what's right. I mean, there's talks about what's going on with the Heritage Tower, and there's talks about the McCamley Plaza Hotel potentially receiving an upgrade here soon, and he wants people living downtown, so there's going to have to be discussions about that, about where that's going to happen, and they're going to need somewhere to park.
Yeah,
so I mean,
right.
So you end up with a lot of developments that at least will probably be discussed this year, and you could probably see some of these things as early as the spring.
Okay. Wow. That's not all that far away now that we're in January. But the sense that you're getting as you're covering these things is there's movement going on.
Downtown development's always, at the top of the list on things to watch because there's so much that goes on, but also so much that doesn't come to fruition. So it'll be interesting to see. That Heritage Tower has been kind of out there for a few years. But I think if now or never.
Yeah,
so
right.
it'll definitely be a top story.
I met with a developer from 616 who was overseeing that project last week, and the guy seemed very encouraged. He seemed like they're ready to move forward with it. They've kind of had to clean up some what he called legacy costs from the previous ownership group, and now they're thinking about renovations. They're thinking about how that could be, how it could survive as a mixed use property.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and this is supposed to be mixed use, which means what? Residential and retail.
Well, they think there's room for retail at the floor level. They think that people could live there. There could be lofts. There could be dining experiences. I mean, there's just a ton of things that need to be discussed, and there's going to be some money that's going to go into it. I mean,
sure,
there's quite a bit ahead.
And the notion is that our community would support that. True?
Yeah, I think many people say that is and I think our editorial board used it, quote, the tipping point. It's the big building that's sitting vacant and that could support all the residential demand and desire. And so it's such a centerpiece of our skyline that you can't just let it sit there vacant and blighted. So.
Right. Yeah, we sure would feel better about it, wouldn't we, when all those folks are moved in.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it'll be an interesting year. We'll be watching and listening and tweeting and responding and Facebooking and all that with all of you. So thank you very much. We'll talk again soon. Dillon Davis and Jennifer Bowman, Battle Creek Enquirer, WBCK.